New farmers step into the world of agriculture with energy, optimism and dreams of self-sufficiency. Many of them are driven by the same curiosity that has pulled historians and survivalists through old farming journals, wartime manuals and frontier accounts. But enthusiasm alone doesn't protect a beginner from the costly mistakes that have tripped farmers up for centuries. The first year on a farm is where most money is lost, not because the land is unforgiving, but because new farmers often repeat the same avoidable errors. Before diving into the insights, it's worth noting that the difference between a struggling farm and a profitable one often starts with decisions made long before seeds hit the soil or the first animal arrives. These early missteps can drain bank accounts quietly and steadily, sometimes without the farmer realizing the damage until months later. This guide lays out the mistakes that consistently cost beginners money, and more importantly, how to avoid them using practical, historically grounded methods that have stood the test of time. The first major mistake is starting big instead of starting right. Many new farmers fall into the trap of expanding faster than their experience level. This is usually fueled by excitement, social media expectations, or pressure to, scale up. Historically, successful farmers would begin with one manageable enterprise and master it before adding another. They understood that every livestock species, vegetable crop or orchard variety requires different knowledge, infrastructure and, time. A modern beginner who tries to run chickens, goats, rabbits and a market garden all in the same year is almost guaranteed to see losses. Feed costs rise, disease risk increases and attention becomes scattered. A practical application of the start small approach is dedicating one season to a single core enterprise such as raising egg-laying hens. Track feed consumption, egg production, labour hours and income. Once that enterprise is stable and profitable, introduce a second. This approach builds skill, confidence and profit simultaneously. The second mistake is underestimating the true cost of infrastructure. New farmers often assume that a few fences, a water trough, and a barn corner will be enough to get started. But history shows that infrastructure, done poorly, has been the silent killer of countless small farms. Colonial farmers wrote frequently about the cost of rebuilding poor fences, and modern farmers still repeat that mistake. A cheap fence that doesn't hold animals will cost more money than doing it correctly the first time, through lost livestock, predators, or constant repairs. A practical solution, really, is to create a list of everything your enterprise truly requires before bringing animals home. For example, if you're raising pigs, you need strong fencing, reliable water access, shade, bedding, and a secure boundary between them and crop areas. Building this first protects your investment and prevents losses that often reach into the thousands. The third mistake is ignoring soil health and focusing only on production. New farmers often fixate on output, more animals, more crops, more yield, without investing in soil. Historical homesteaders knew the soil was the foundation of everything. They rotated crops, rested fields, and fed the ground because they understood that depleted soil equals depleted income. In a modern context, beginners sometimes plant the same crop in the same spot every year, or plough aggressively without adding organic matter. The result is compaction, nutrient loss, and declining yields, which in turn drives up fertilizer costs. A practical application is running simple soil tests at least twice a year and building soil with compost, green manures, and crop rotation. For example, after harvesting corn or potatoes, plant a nitrogen-fixing crop like clover or peas. The soil naturally rebuilds itself over winter, reducing input costs in the spring. The fourth mistake is buying animals before understanding their behavior and care. One of the most expensive errors new livestock farmers make is purchasing animals first and learning about them later. Historically, farmers were apprentices by necessity. They learned animal behavior long before they managed their own stock. Modern beginners sometimes buy goats without knowing how high they can climb, or purchase meat birds without understanding their feed-to-weight ratio. A practical way to prevent this is spending at least 2 weeks observing or helping on a farm that raises the livestock you're interested in. Take note of housing feed amounts, daily routines and costs. This short learning period can save hundreds in preventable losses, such as escaped goats, sick chickens, or animals with nutritional deficiencies. The fifth mistake is failing to treat the farm like a business. Many beginners step into farming with passion, but forget the bookkeeping. You know, historically, farmers kept meticulous ledgers because they understood that a farm survives on numbers, not feelings. These days, though, modern small farmers often avoid tracking expenses, just sort of assuming profits will reveal themselves later on. But, well, this is how money silently disappears. A practical solution, really, is to track every input and every output weekly. Feed costs, repairs, seed purchases, water use, and revenue. These should all be recorded, without exception. After about 3 months, patterns start to emerge. You begin to see where your money is leaking away and where your strongest profit potential lies. This sort of information, it really allows you to scale up intelligently, and honestly, it helps prevent those emotional decisions that can end up draining your budget. Now, the sixth mistake, well, that's failing to build local relationships. Beginners, they often try to go it alone, relying just on online guides. Historically, farmers survived through strong community ties. Neighbours helped neighbours with tools, with knowledge, and with labour. New farmers who try to go it alone, they miss out on shared resources, mentorship, and local wisdom that, quite frankly, save a lot of money. To really put this into practice, you should attend local livestock auctions, seed swaps, and extension workshops. Build relationships with older farmers who have, decades of experience in your exact climate and soil type. Their advice often prevents the most expensive mistakes that beginners tend to make. In conclusion, new farmers lose money not because they lack dedication, but because they fall into traps that historical farmers learn to avoid the hard way, through real experience. By starting small, investing in infrastructure, caring for the soil, learning livestock behavior before you buy, keeping good records, and building community, beginners really do set themselves on a path toward long-term farm profitability. If you found this guide insightful and want more historically grounded strategies for thriving in modern husbandry, well, be sure to subscribe to Husbandry and share this with someone who's just starting their farming journey.